Did you ever have a very bad, not good, totally awful day?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I kind of had one of those today. And here we go. I don't know how much. I know how much trouble Kirk had, and I worked trying to get logged into Yada Yahweh for what seemed like 20 minutes, and I couldn't get it to work. Had to switch browsers, and finally got it up, and then we finally got it up, and Kirk and I were just chatting away, and the background finally says, "Okay, we're going to start the show," and there was nothing but silence. Music was on a long delay. That's kind of how my day has gone today. But that is, as they say, if everything was easy, then we'd have no backbone, no character. It's all about having bumps in the road and figuring out how you're going to handle them, right?
Yep.
Important part of living. Kirk, you, Jimmy, I don't know if you've had the time to do it. You've got the new job, and with a little one at home, I'm sure it's tough. But I know, Kirk, you told me that you'd read the first 63 pages of the rewrite of the terms volume of a Introduction to God.
Yes, I have.
It's a lot different than the old one, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is so clear, so defensible in the sense that everything is there right before you. It's nothing that's hinted at. It's all laid out before you. It's the type of document that I would love to send to people if they would read it. I have a lot of people that I could send them 1,000
of course,
and they wouldn't read it. But this is the one, because it's something that everybody thinks they know about, the Ten Commandments.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they've all seen the movie, which Orson Helsing, so they know what it is.
Yeah.
And then you read this, and your world is blown.
Thou shalt not.
Yeah. This is totally blown.
Yeah, and I wasn't soliciting a compliment, as you know. But it was mostly just the idea that what I think has happened is that since that was written, which may have been 8, 9, 10 years ago, we've grown. We've grown a lot. That chapter, I think when I started, it was like 40 pages, and now it's 70-some odd pages. It's about as uninspired as anything that I've written in a while. It's just all laid out there for us. Really just simple, straightforward, laid out for us. And we've gotten this mindset of you want to understand something, let Yahweh explain it to you. And look at his first use of the words. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to make the claim, for example, I wanted to make the claim that stealing really had nothing to do with taking something that belongs to somebody else, like going into the store and confiscating a head of cabbage because you had the munchies. And so all you have to do is, because the tools are so good today, and this is one of the things I wrote in that chapter, that that here the children of Israel were standing there. Their Mount Oreb is at the foreground. It's brilliantly lit up with Yah's light. His booming voice is speaking to them, and you're saying, "Wow, what a scene that would be! Wouldn't you like to be there?"
Maybe that's
yeah, sure. Part of me would like to have been there, but look how much better an advantage we have now. Of being able to closely examine every facet of every word, every little letter, and think about what it means, and to make all the connections with what we've learned since that time. So one of the things we have are concordances in addition to lexicons. And the word book of the Old Testament, I hate the name, but the Twat, is particularly effective as a tool. Because what it's going to do, do you have that one, Kirk?
No, I've seen them, but it's on my list to do, and I just don't think to get to it. I've
seen the hardback of it, and it would be pretty complicated to have to look it up. But some people just love books. I have an interactive version of it, and if you look up a word, in most cases, not every case, it will tell you all of the interesting ways that word is used. Like when we get to Zeroah in this chapter, it's the word book of the Old Testament that took us to the final two places that were, oh my goodness, did I just read that? Where every way that a word is used, and a lot of words have multiple meanings, they will present it. And so you're in a position of saying, that is really interesting. I'm going to go translate that, because if I translate that, it will help me do a better job of explaining this passage that I'm really trying to understand right here. So we have just these marvelous tools, and it is fun to use them. So the rewrite of this chapter, which I think we're going to publish as a book all by itself, just the terms. So I promised that I would go back after it and do my best job of retranslating it. I learned a lot of things. Kirk, one of the things I thought was really interesting is that I went through it the first time, and woe is me. I was just all up on a Twitter over the fact that I could not prove whether or not I had no evidence to determine if the original text said Nasa or Nasha, as it relates to the third statement that Yahweh etched in stone. And because we don't have Shemoth, names, Exodus 20 among the Qumran scrolls. How stupid me. That doesn't mean we don't have it. Because Moshe, Devarim is about Moshe's presenting what he thought was the most important to us. So it's not an early scroll, but we have what's called 4Q Dut. And it's the preponderance of that section of Devarim, Deuteronomy 5, that goes, that's Moshe's presentation of the 10 statements. And sure enough, you can read right there. It's written in Paleo-Hebrew, and in Paleo-Hebrew, as you know, there is no difference between a sin and a shin. In Babylonian Hebrew, they put a dot over one side versus the other side of what looks like a W to form the word. But in Paleo-Hebrew, it would be either it's the shin or the sin, the same letter. So now you are Nasha, so the nun, it's either Sinj or Shin, because they were one letter originally, and the Ain. And so you're looking at this and saying, there it is, sure as day. And now I can say emphatically that the original text did not differentiate between these two. One of the words means to lift up. That's the primary meaning of Nasha, to lift up. With the sin. With the shin, the SH sound, it means to deceive, to beguile, to treat in an inappropriate, misleading way. And when you're dealing with an unforgivable sin, which is what the third statement is, regarding deceiving people regarding Yahweh's name, which of those two definitions make sense? Lifting up or deceiving?
Deceiving.
Of course. So I can prove emphatically that in the original text, as it was copied on the 4Q Dut scroll, which anybody can go online, there'd be wonderful pictures of it, that there is no determination as to whether it was written Nasa or Nasha. So now I'm just as justified as anybody else in determining that I think it's Nasha, not Nasa, because the definition of one is a fish out of water, and the other is swimming like a tuna. Just so much stuff we can do, and things we can figure out when we now have a much better basis of understanding and and know how to use the tools more effectively. And so with every one of the 10 statements, what I did is if I were to make a statement like on the statement that talks about, it's translated in the King James and then for every other Bible, thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, no, doesn't mean adultery in the sense that we use the word. It just doesn't. There is no, you're married, and as I mentioned before the show, if you were to go off and have affairs with a dozen young unmarried women, Terry would not be pleased with you, and she would it would be in her mind that you committed adultery. And by the standard, the way we use the word today, that would be true, but not by the Torah standard. Now, it's not saying that Yahowah or the Torah encourage you to go do that. It doesn't. But it doesn't say that's not its definition. Its definition of the word is don't go off and take another man's woman, his wife. And that's the full extent of it. Until you examine the Yahowah's discussions using the word. And when you examine his prophetic discussions and historic discussions using the word, now it's really clear. He's not talking about boys and girls, men and women, marriage or adultery at all, but instead cheating on him with other gods. You just go translate those other passages that this is how we use the word. This is what it really means. We have been misled into thinking that this means one thing or another. It's if you wanted to be the Christian and put your own moral stamp on it, it's just inconsistent with the testimony. Then I decided, I've started the investigation on the 2 statements on homosexuality, but I really did it in a cursory fashion, just so we presented on the show in a cursory fashion. Well, I went back and I spent a couple of days not only translating the 2 passages, but translating how the words are used elsewhere, so we can figure out why did God use a term that means to lie down as opposed to come into, which is the term sex has come into, ba. Why did he use just a term that means lie down? And lie down for a lot of reasons. Lie down meditation, lie down celebration, lie down in sorrow, lie down in sickness, lie down in death, lie down for sex, lie down to sleep, lie down to rest, lie down to meditate. So it just says, lie down. And then the next term is always translated in English Bibles as bed. Well, there's a perfectly good Hebrew word for bed, and that's not it. It happens to be the same word for lie down, but with a interrogative in front of it. And so now you're being asked to question the issues regarding lying down. And so you've got to look to the first use of the word and say, what questions are we supposed to ask? And what you find in the so-called statement on homosexuality has nothing to do with homosexuality. It's about trying to embarrass somebody this idea of seeking revenge and control and to lash out at somebody in a really inappropriate way. Mm-hmm. That's what the statement's all about. So it's just lots of food for thought in terms of what God is really interested in. I think, Kirk, you nailed it when you said the more you do the research on this, you find out that it's really just one theme from beginning to end, isn't it?
Absolutely.
A single message. All 10 statements boil down to a single idea. And what is that idea?
Walk away from that stuff. Religion and politics and
right. That's it.
People taking over,
Right. Walk away from religion and politics, from false gods and all of your lying, deceitful ways, because I'm just not going to tolerate any of that.
Yeah. He can overcome everything else, but he won't come.
Right.
He don't care.
Yeah. So that's not to say that it's a good idea to steal. It isn't. It's not to say that it's a good idea to bear false witness. It isn't. It's a good idea to have it commit adultery. It isn't. But we're just here to tell you, the statements don't say what people think they say.
Yeah.
And the meaning is much more profound.
You have to be an honest reporter.
Yes. Yeah, if you're going to do it, you really do need to think it through. All right, we're in the midst of Yeshaya 40, and I'll just take us back one statement so that we're kind of up to speed. And it says, upon the elevated and exalted mountain. Boy, I've interrupted this program with a news break. Did you hear today that Mahmoud, the unelected president of the mythical people known as the Palestinians, that he made an announcement today, and he said it was all based upon the United States using its veto so that the United Nations could not condemn Israel for tearing down, I think it was 3 or 4 homes. I think there were a dozen or so people that were living in those homes. And they gave those people better places to live. So it wasn't like they were leaving them homeless. They gave them better places to live. And they tore down the homes because, well, they were right next to the border wall that Israel has had to build not far from Jerusalem. And they said, because of that, we're no longer going to honor any side of our agreement, any of our written agreements with Israel. Now I read that. The first thing I did was I just like you. Yeah, so first thing I did is laughed and said, so that's news how? You haven't honored an agreement you had with Israel from the beginning. You're Muslims. You don't honor agreements. It's just who you are. So that was the first thing I said. So, if I were Netanyahu, the first thing I would do is say, so the mythical people known as and their unelected representative got on their high horse today and said they're not going to honor any agreements they've made with us, as if that's a change. And then I think I would have said that in a world where people and nations are doing horrid things, the United Nations is going to condemn Israel for moving 3 or 4 families.
Upgrading 3 or 4 families.
Yeah, upgrading the digs of 3 or 4 families. And you want to condemn us for that? And would somebody please explain to me why is it that we had to build this wall? The wall didn't exist in 1948. We didn't even have the wall in 67 in the 6 Days War. We didn't have it in 73 during the Yom Kippur War. Why is it that we had to build this wall in the first place? It certainly isn't to keep Jews in, but the people that are on the other side want to kill us. And so we put up the wall to keep them from killing us. If they stopped attacking us and seeking to kill us, we wouldn't have to build the wall. So before you go and you condemn us for moving some houses that were too close to a wall that we didn't want to build but we now had to build, and people complain that they're not going to honor their agreements, who never have honored their agreements, just bother to think it through for a moment. Anyway, upon the elevated and exalted mountain, ascend. Zion, the signs posted along the way, proclaims the good news for you to approach. There is good news. By the way, this is one of those wonderful places where Bashar, which is because of Pauline doctrine, every English Bible wants to render Bashar as the flesh, right? Well, that's his tertiary meaning. Primary meaning is proclaim a message. Its secondary meaning is announce the good news related to the first. The tertiary meaning is the flesh. And here's just one of those places that just shows that, you're not going to say, upon the elevated mountain, Zion, ascend, Zion, the signs posted along the way, flesh, for you to approach. And somebody say, that's not fair, that here you got the same word written the same way with two different meanings. Why did God create that confusion? How do you spell, I want to wind my watch?
W-I-N-D.
How do you spell the wind blew my tablecloth off the table?
W-I-N-D.
Spelled the same way, isn't it?
Invalid, invalid.
Yes, invalid and invalid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Read, read, right.
Carry on. There's a lot
of so it's just the nature of languages. Powerfully and with authority, choose to raise your voice, bringing the good news to Jerusalem. This idea that God loves the meek. I'm telling you, the guy that Yahweh loved the most, Dode, he was everything but meek.
Yes.
And he was vociferous. And that guy, he was constantly writing songs and singing them. God wants us to speak out. He wants us to do what we're doing. Let his message be known and direct his message to the right place, Jerusalem. So powerfully, with authority, choose to raise your voice, bringing the good news to Jerusalem. Lift on high and choose to proclaim, fear not, no longer feel intimidated, anxious, or apprehensive, cities of Yehudah. Behold, look up now and see your God. So, has this happened before?
When someone has talked loud like that, Moshe.
I'm telling you that the idea that, hey man, things are really good now. Moshe had no Moshe didn't even know what Jerusalem was, right?
Oh, that's
so.
No, yeah.
He had no idea what Jerusalem was, and while they for a moment could look up and see their God, they weren't singing songs to him. They weren't lifting up their voices. They were scared to death of him. Moshe was the only guy that could really go up there and deal with him. The rest of them said, no. Can you tell him not to talk to us anymore? He scares us. This is talking about a future event.
Yes.
This is 15 years from now. Well, we can lift up our voices now and ascend along Zion. And we can pronounce the good news now, and we can powerfully, with authority, raise our voices to Jerusalem. We can choose to proclaim this, and we can tell them, fear not, and do not be anxious or apprehensive, Yehudah. Behold, look up now and see your God. So, what we're telling Yehudah and Israel is that Yahweh is returning, and he's returning to Zion in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah. And you could look up right now and see him. And so rather than being apprehensive, look right now and see him. He's right there. You can know him. You can see him. I was mentioned earlier that wouldn't it be spectacular to have been there when you looked up and you saw the blazing fire and Yahweh's voice is reverberating, and yet it's far more visible to us. His voice is far clearer by reading his Torah and prophets than it ever was then. Look up now and see your God. That brings us to where we ended last week's program. Behold, I, Yahweh, the upright pillar, with a powerful, will arrive, with a powerful ruler. So behold, I, Yahowah, the upright pillar, will arrive with a powerful ruler. That's Ba-Shazak. With the loud blast of a trumpet, and a very strong and passionate person, one with military prowess, is ready to fight. One who is intensely prepared and resolutely capable of encouraging, repairing, and defending. One who embodies the right character, the appropriate status, and the vocal strength to govern appropriately. Who is also courageous as a leader, and firm with a strong hand. Who knows how to lead in the proper direction. Who do you think he's coming back with? Who fits that description?
Well, I've done about 8 pages now on this one verse. It cannot be anyone but God. It cannot be. You can cut it apart, break it down any way you want. It has to be God.
Yep. Because there are some people along the way that were extraordinary. Elia. Yeah, that dude was extraordinary. But he wasn't a fighter. He wasn't a governor. He had the vocal strength. He had the passion. But military prowess? No. The right character? Yeah, I think so. Courageous? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he really was courageous. Moshe. Moshe may have had some military training. Moshe was not intensely prepared. Moshe had the vocal strength? No, in fact, that's
his brother.
His excuse, right? He had no vocal strength. Can't be Moshe. So there's something that excludes everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Yosha is excluded before we even get to Shazak, because it says, right after saying, "Behold, see your God," it says, "Behold, I, Yahweh, will arrive." Well, if Yahweh's arriving, he sure as heck not bringing a diminished manifestation of himself along with him.
No, it would serve no purpose.
So before you even get to the description of who he's bringing with him, Yosha's excluded.
Boy, big sound was made from all the churches today when you said that.
The guy, that all those pictures of him coming down through the clouds. I'm sorry, but no, he's going to arrive with a powerful ruler. And then his protective shepherd, his capable arm and protective ram, his Zeroah.
Mm-hmm.
The prevailing and effective nature, the strength, resolve, and overall ability of his remarkably important and impactful leader among the flock. This ram who engages and fights as a shepherd, protecting his sheep, who with his strong arm is fruitful in his ways, accomplishing the mission, especially when sowing the seeds of truth, while denoting and advancing the purpose of God and his sacrificial lamb. All from Zeroah will vividly communicate for him. Look up and pay attention to him. The compensation for his loyalty and his work in the past, present, and future is right in front of him. So what do you think?
Well, if you look at what the problem is, you look at Zeroah and then the verb Zorah, and every lexicon, and I've looked through as many as I could look through, they tell you it's literally a man, so we can discount that as Yosha. It's deliverance, and it's a figuratively of a shepherd.
Now, can I challenge that for a minute? Can I challenge that idea for a moment?
Okay.
I think there are 3 Zeroah.
Yes, and you made them.
And 2 are exceptional, but yet ordinary humans.
Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely confident, matter of fact, positive, that Moshe that Yahweh used the I'm confident that Yahweh used the term Zeroah to describe aspects of Dod's nature. I don't think you have any argument with that. But the first couple of times that Zeroah is used in the Torah, it speaks of the sacrificial lamb of Passover, and what the Lowy were doing with portions of the Passover lamb that was particularly responsible for shouldering burdens, the shoulders of the Passover lamb.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think there's anything wrong, so long as we don't limit it to that one of the definitions of Zeroah, and I think there are three, that one of those definitions of Zeroah, and there's actually more than three, but three fundamental definitions from which others flow, that one of those definitions incorporates the idea of being the sacrificial lamb. And as such, it would describe Yosha as the sacrificial lamb. But technically, when you think about it, that still means you're 100% right, Kirk. Because as the sacrificial lamb, Yosha was no longer Yahweh in a diminished form.
Mm-hmm.
To be the sacrificial lamb, my God, why have you deserted me? Right?
Right.
So now, even as the Zeroah, it can only apply to Yosha. This is not speaking of Yosha, but Zeroah could apply to Yosha as the sacrificial lamb, but only during the portion of time where he is the sacrificial lamb, where the Spirit of Yahweh is no longer on him.
Fair enough.
Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, but it's just the point really that strikes me is that there's a preponderance of evidence, so much so in all the lexicons that if I don't understand to this day how you can translate the way most all the translations, if not all the translations, are. I mean, I'm reading
for example,
the
number one translation, the number one definition of Zeroah is just arm. If you look up in 20 lexicons, the first thing you're going to read, primary definition is arm. And of the 40 some odd times that Zeroah is used, it can be translated simply as arm, like 2 or 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
5% of the time, it can be translated as arm.
Yes.
95% of the time, it cannot be.
Mm-hmm.
You can add things to arm, and you can extrapolate from arm to get to some of its meanings. Like sometimes a Zeroah is used in as cutting off the strong arm of a military leader, such that their force is incapacitated. It's not common, but it is used that way, and it can mean strong arm, but only in certain contexts.
Okay. Now, right? Let me ask you this. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this. If we're looking at the verbal meaning, or how we learn from the
Zerah.
That's
from Zerah, right?
Uh-huh. And it
mm-hmm.
says to sow, to scatter seed, yielding seed, or planting,
mm-hmm.
Planting Israel in the land.
Who are the two most prolific seed planters and spreaders and sowers in the history of Yahweh's spreading and sowing seeds?
Well, here's my thinking. You've got the only one who spread the seeds out, or spread in the sense of all the writings he made, all the Psalms he wrote, that gathered in who grew the family, because that's the metaphor,
mm-hmm.
would be Dod. Moshe, of course, recited and wrote down dictation from Yahweh, and we're better for that, and we can get there from there. But,
although he did, Debadim is his own words.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
Inspired, but nonetheless, it's his. Debadim is such a treasure, because what it says of Yahweh is, I didn't just choose to use this man as a writing implement. I didn't just choose to integrate with Moshe as the recorder of my Torah, but instead as a man through whom I could communicate to my people. And Debadim has Moshe sharing what he has learned from Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's so magnanimous. That's so uplifting of Yahowah, so reassuring of who we are as people, and His desire to work through us. So I just love Debatim. But in Debatim, let's give Moshe some credit for sowing seeds. It's not as prolific as Dode, but still, I'd throw him a nugget.
Yeah. I didn't mean to imply that he's a giant to us, but if you're just comparing the Zorah,
he is. In terms of Yah's purpose and as a prophet, he's a giant.
Yeah. But the one that was to me that really reached out to enlarge the sheep, as the shepherd, is Dode. Is
Dode
on every count. It's not that the others didn't do that, but Yosha didn't even have anything written. He quoted both of these guys. So,
Other than I'm going to throw Yosha a little nugget here too.
What he was there for and what he was going to do.
Right.
He jumped all over
to some degree, Yosha was the Word made flesh.
Yes. So
to some degree, you got that. But in terms of sowing the seeds, not only of truth and of Yahweh's message, so that future generations could be born from it, and we could examine the Torah in the proper way and become part of Yah's family. From Dode came Yosha, right? From Dode came Solomon.
Yes.
From Dode came a united Yisrael. The only time the country was united. It stayed united a brief time under his son, but the only time it was united, the only time that Yisrael had a capital of Yahudah was at that moment. And clearly, Dode is the only one that fits the every concept of Ba Chazak. And now we're moving to Zorah. And I think there's other aspects of Zorah that also work. And I know that if you just go to the verbal root, you're going to have that part that I shared and that you more correctly emphasized, which is sowing the seeds of truth. But I think it's pretty clear that the Torah begins by defining Zorah as the sacrificial lamb. But so here the concepts that I came up with was the Zorah is a protective shepherd. The Zorah is a capable arm. But the Zorah is also a protective ram. And to really appreciate this, I think you have to look at the word El and Ab, the two words El and Ab. Ab meaning Father, El meaning God. What letter do both of them start with?
Aleph.
Yeah, the Aleph. Right. And the Aleph depicts Yahweh as Father and as God, as a ram, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Right? It's either a ram in the house, Ab, or a ram that is a shepherd.
Correct.
Aleph. Right? The word God is a ram who is a shepherd. That's the shepherd living with his sheep. That's the shepherd wanting to be part of the flock. That's the lead sheep in the flock saying, I'm going to protect this flock. I'm going to lead this flock. I'm going to guide this flock. I'm going to nurture this flock. I'm going to take care of this flock. This is my flock. I'm going to be one with them. I'm going to sleep with them. I'm going to live with them. Celebrate life with them. That's how God presents himself. So to be both a protective ram and a protective shepherd falls right into the metaphor of the very term that Yahweh used as his title, El God. So that's now a really powerful concept. So Zorah is a protective shepherd. It is a capable arm. When Yahweh chose to work through Moshe was the arm of God at that moment.
Absolutely.
When, he raised his staff and the seas parted. Right?
Pretty big stuff.
He was the strong arm of Yahweh. When Dode slung the sling and killed the uncircumcised Philistine, a loud-mouthed, braggadocious Philistine, he was the arm of God. And so I think there is that arm of God, that capable arm that's part of it. but it's one who's prevailed. It's one who's effective, someone with strength, resolve, ability, who's remarkably important. I think there's only 3 of them in human history, who's impactful, who's a leader among the flock, a ram that engages and fights as a shepherd, protecting his sheep. And as you said, it's someone who just doesn't accomplish the mission, but they sow the seeds of truth. That's a powerful term.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that term applying to 3 individuals, Moshe, Dod, and Yosha. And I think each of the 3 embody most of it. I think that only Yosha was the sacrificial lamb, but Dod was both a protective shepherd, a capable arm, and a protective ram. And so was Moshe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got Yosha opening the Pesach door. He has to do that, or there's no game in town. All the rest of it's irrelevant. So he had to fulfill Pesach, which was the plan all along. Without the mitzvah and the terms and conditions, we don't know what, that's presented in the Torah, which is from Moshe. So we know verbatim clearly this is what he's looking for. Plus we have the commandment, not the commandments over here, but the 10 statements, the 10 suggestions in stone that tell us in great detail that he wrote with his own hand, but that's presented by Moshe. But Dod has become, at least to me, so helpful and understanding. It's one thing to have all the knowledge. Moshe gave you all the knowledge. You're enabled by Yosha. But the understanding part, really deep understanding, the more you study Dod, the more I think you get of that overall.
I think that Dod was the smartest person who ever lived. The wisest, smartest. When it comes to the things that are important in life, Dod is the smartest person who ever lived. The more I read Moshe's statements in Debatim, the more I'm excited about the intellect of that man. He's a sharp dude. That was an amazing man. He really, really got it. I think he was also pretty darn sharp. And I think it is really important that we take the time, though, to study a word like this and embrace it. I want to challenge something else you said here, and I'm doing so the same way that I encourage you to challenge something that I say. It's not that I'm disagreeing with you, but I want to challenge something. You said that if Yosha hadn't fulfilled Pesach and opened that door, everything's for naught. I'm not so sure.
Okay. Why do you feel that way?
Okay. Yahowah came up with a plan in Mitzrayim, in the crucibles of human oppression. And he said, here's my plan. I want you to take this lamb, and I've got everything I want you to know about this lamb and how you're going to treat this lamb and when you're going to celebrate with this lamb, precisely what you're going to do with this lamb and what's going to happen after Pesach with this lamb. I'm going to tell you everything there is about this lamb so that you can do what I say, act upon it, understand what I'm saying, and benefit from it, and you're going to live.
See where you're going. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was the plan.
Yeah.
That lamb, Yahowah, says, I'm going to use that as the sacrificial lamb, and that lamb's going to nourish you. That lamb's going to provide food for you, but I'm going to use the sacrifice of that lamb to exonerate you in the sense that you're going to live. What Yahowah had to do is 2 things. He promised Abraham, as it relates to Yishak and the sacrifice of Yishak, because humans in every culture were sacrificing other humans. He said, no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to provide the lamb. So Yahowah had to honor his promise, because he made it, to Abraham. and therefore he had to provide the lamb.
Mm-hmm.
That he had to do. But it's not because the plan that he had initiated was in any way failed or incomplete. What was incomplete is that Yahowah did the next thing, and that is, the next thing he did is he allowed his soul to go to Sheol, to rid us of the corruption of yeast, of the fungus of religion and politics. So I think that while what Yosha did is it made the sacrifice of the sacrificial lamb, from that point on, it wasn't the lamb that was opening the little that was opening the doorway to life. It was now permanently open for all that understand and act upon and respond to Yahowah's invitation on this day, and that everything from that moment was symbolic, understanding the symbolism, capitalizing on the symbolism of it. But I don't think that that what the children of Israel did in Egypt was inadequate.
Well, no, but it was an ongoing thing that they did every year, recognizing what would be done, that he would fulfill that. It's just like
correct. Yes.
Yeah. So,
I would agree with that.
So, yeah.
But I don't think they knew that he was going to fulfill it.
Well, I don't think they had a clue about most stuff. To be honest with you.
I don't think they did.
But we're looking in retrospect.
I don't think they knew.
Yeah, we're looking backwards, so we can see the whole plan unfold right before our eyes, and then some.
Correct. Correct. So I think there was a powerful affirmation of Yahowah's honesty and his dependability, and a great opportunity to appreciate the symbolism and therefore understand the whole concept of Pesach by what Yosha did as the Pesach lamb. I just don't think that what happened previously was inadequate. I just think that Yosha sacrifice took it to the ultimate position in terms of okay, I've done this now. This is take advantage of it, and Yahowah honored his promise through me. Capitalize on it, and then of course, if you never separate Pesach from matzah and then capitalize on matzah, then you've got everything that you need to be benefit from Bikurim. So anyway, we have here, behold, and by the way, this kind of stuff, this is one of my favorite things to do, is to talk about the possibilities. I don't think there's been a single point since we've begun this that we have said, this is the answer, period. There's no other possible interpretation of this. Our way is the right way. What we say is, this is what God said. This is what the words mean. This is what it conveys to us, and how you might be able to appreciate it and capitalize on it.
Yeah.
But there's lots of nuances that have tremendous value in discussing that we really don't have to understand. Like, do you think it really matters to your and our inclusion in the covenant if, in fact, the sacrificial lamb of Pesach back circa the Exodus was sufficient for those people or not?
How many of them had a perfect lamb? It's symbolic.
Right.
So yeah,
my thinking was that it was sufficient for them. God told them,
yes,
if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And so I think that it was sufficient for them.
Sure.
And so I look at Yosha's fulfillment of it is really his fulfillment of the promise Yahowah made to Abraham, and that therefore you can rely on all the promises that Yahowah made to Abraham. And he took it to such a level that that he affirmed that he's trustworthy, and that at this point it's not about the 4-footed little critter. It's all about answering the invitation, understanding what it means, and benefiting from it.
Now, one of the arguments you get from Christians when you try and talk about the New Testament being unreliable is, well, then how do you know that that he fulfilled it? And he's given me plenty of evidence to know that he keeps his promises. He prophesies its fulfillment in the Psalms. So I don't need to have a written document that says he fulfilled it to know he did.
And actually, you do have one. It's called Mizmor 22 and
Daniel
88.
and Psalms.
And yes, you do have a written, and that's the argument that my answer to them is, actually, I don't have to have proof that he fulfilled
the Greek text at all.
Yeah, I don't have to have it. I do not need proof that Yahusha fulfilled it. First of all, your Greek text doesn't even have its name. And if you don't know his name, you don't know that Yahweh honored the promise. A guy named Jesus Christ doing this, that, and the other thing is irrelevant. It's not God fulfilling it. So we don't have a text that says that Yahusha did this, and so the Greek text doesn't answer the question. And nobody that was witnessing what happened there had a clue what was happening. And Christians even today can't figure it out. So that Greek text doesn't help you at all. And but the bottom line is that you're right. You don't need an eyewitness account that verifies that God did what he promised. I've got a countless list of affirmations that Yahweh does as he promised. Now, that said, he was kind enough to inspire Dode to be an eyewitness to what happens. And so there's a wonderful eyewitness account of what happened there. Psalm 22, Psalm 88.
Right down to the medical situation. Yeah?
Yeah, it's even right to the point of being medical.
Okay.
Yep. So behold, I, Yahweh, the upright pillar, sorry, Christians, you can throw away your second coming, will arrive. No, Jesus ain't arriving. I, Yahweh, will arrive. The powerful ruler. That means you're not taking Jesus back with him. And then his protective shepherd, capable arm, and productive ram will vividly communicate for him. What is the word there? Kirk, I'm sure you studied it. JB, you know this word. What is the word will vividly communicate?
She says? Oh, I'm sorry. No,
I don't have it pulled up, but I'm betting Debar.
No. Word is Debar, to vividly communicate, to communicate via proverbs and sayings and renown discourse, memorable discourse, using word pictures. Mashal. Exactly, that's the word there. That's the verb, is mashal. Now, mashal has two meanings. Its primary meaning is to communicate by painting pictures of things with words. To communicate with words such that the images that you're witnessing with your eyes, these words help you understand something that's profoundly important. Like the 23rd Mizmor Psalm is a great example of that. All of the Marshal are examples of that because they're all written about a father, mother, and son. That kind of guidance. But, Dode's lyrics are vivid. And so Dode was the ultimate writer of mashal. Now, the other aspect of mashal is that it's a leader, someone with authority, somebody who holds dominion. Well, who did Yahweh say that he's going to establish as king during the millennial kingdom?
Dode, to rule.
Yeah. Right. And while the rabbinical types have come to the conclusion that Solomon wrote the Proverbs because there's a statement that Solomon wrote a lot of Proverbs. I personally don't think he wrote any of those Proverbs. And because they weren't songs, Dode didn't take credit for them because that was his thing with song. But he was the ultimate son of the Father. And so I think that most of the Mashal proverbs are actually from Dowd. It's his writing style, it's his vocabulary, it's his perspective. And if you compare Ecclesiastes, for example, of the Song of Solomon, to the Mashal, the Proverbs, there is no intersection of any kind. They're oil and water. But if you compare the style, the vocabulary, the perspective that's presented in those Mashal with the Mizmor of Dowd, same message, same vocabulary, same idea. So I think that they were written by Dowd. But even if you don't, and that's fine if you don't. If you were to study the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, and I were to ask you, okay, the answer to this question is life and death. You've got to get it right. Open book test. You've got to get it right. Who was the most vivid communicator? The fellow that was the most able to develop word pictures so that we could understand what was going on. You got one chance. If you get it wrong, I'm sorry. It's arrivederci.
Over. Huh? This is written in the perfect. Huh? Dowd.
Yeah, written in the perfect. You got one shot.
I'll still take Dowd.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't even have to think about it. Wouldn't even hesitate.
Yeah.
Look up and pay attention to him. Now, what's that all about? It's look up and pay attention to him. Who does Yahweh draw attention to? If you were to read the Psalms about the prophets, and you were to focus on the names of people that we're going to see and witness with Yahweh during the last days, that Yahweh mentions in conjunction with the last days, how many times does he tell us in the last days that he's going to be associated with Yosha?
None.
Right. There are.
I can think of.
Yeah, not one. How many times does he say, "I'm in the last days, the guy that I'm going to establish prophetic verses about? We're just going to be best of buds," is Moshe. Not once. There's only two people that I'm aware of. Only two people that I'm aware of in all of the history of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms that are mentioned by name with regard to the last days. And one is only mentioned once.
Eliyahu?
Eliyahu is one of the two witnesses.
Sorry.
Eliyahu. Yep. Yeah, so Eliyahu is one of the two witnesses. That's a really, really lousy job. Sorry, Eliyahu, but that's a really lousy job. Anyway, he's one of the two witnesses. Every other one, and it's over and over and over again. It comes up all the time. Yahweh says, I'm going to come back with the branch. And he said, just in case you wonder who the branch is, it's Dowd. I'm going to come back with my shepherd. And just in case you don't know who the shepherd is, it's Dowd. I'm going to establish the millennial kingdom with my king. And, by the way, in case you don't know who that is, that's Dowd. I'm going to come back with my anointed Messiah. And just in case you don't know who that is, his name is Dowd.
That's Yuck.
Yeah. So when he says, look up now and pay attention to him, well, he's talking about Dowd. And if you are Yisrael, if you are Yahudim, if you are a Jew alive today, if you're a Gentile, what God is encouraging you to do right here is look up and read his Psalms. Read his Mashal. Read about his life and Shamuel, for example. Read what he wrote. Read what he had to say. Read what Yahweh said to him, what Yahweh said through him. Pay attention to him. And this is really what's interesting. The compensation for his loyalty, his work, past and present, is right in front of him. There are places where Yahweh says, I'm not only giving Dode all of Yisrael, I'm giving him everything from sea to sea. So Dode is inheriting, and this is really important. For Yahweh to say, I'm going to give everything to Yosha is stupid. Why would you give? You created this enormous universe, and you're going to give the universe that you created to yourself?
Yourself. I made all of it for me.
I did all of this. I'm going to give it to myself.
Great.
No. The prime directive is the covenant. I want to have a family, and the favored son is Dode, and it's a celebration of who Yahweh is and why we exist, that he said, I'm going to give this inheritance to my son, to Dode. We ought to celebrate that.
Works for me.
We really ought to celebrate it. It's exactly as we would expect. So he says, it's for his loyalty, it's compensation. It's a just return for the services that he has rendered. That I'm coming back with him. Yahweh loved what Dode did with his life. Not every aspect of it, but there's nobody that contributed more for a longer period of time than Dode. So this Shazak, powerful ruler, and Zeroah, protective shepherd, who is known for his mashal, ability to paint pictures with words, and who is Sakar, known for his service and devotion to God, is now in Yahweh's presence. And he is viewing a restored Yisrael. He is there for many reasons, one of which is that this will be a time of war, when Yahweh will be vanquishing all of those who have foolishly opposed him and his people. Not only has Dode fought more effectively on behalf of Yisrael than anyone else, he's the only one who meets this on all of these criteria. Dode was and is Yahweh's Shazak, most powerful and passionate leader, one with military prowess, who was ready to fight to defend the chosen people. Dode was Shazak, intensely prepared and resolutely capable of encouraging and restoring Israel. He, Shazak, manifested the right character, embodied the appropriate status, and clearly possessed the vocal strength to lead and govern appropriately. When you are citing words and singing words in your lyrics that are so catchy, so profound, so interesting, God himself quotes you on multiple occasions, you meet the standard.
You're doing something right.
You're doing something right. You meet this standard. Dode met the standard. Now, should anyone want to challenge the fact that these three words all point to Dode, and they don't stand alone, because Yahweh has told us over and over again, I'm returning with Dode. How about this one? Like a shepherd, he will tend his flock. He will gather the lambs in his strong and capable arms, with him being a protective shepherd and a productive ram. Zeroah, he will guide, leading those who are nursing, lifting them up in his lap. Well, Moshe was a shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
Yosha was not. I'm not sure that there were any other shepherds of renown. But this man is going to be a shepherd. Yahweh says, I was the guy that found him, when King Shaul went over the deep end and started adding to the Torah. Yahweh said, that's just not going to work. And he said, I'm going to provide a king. And he told Shemuel where to go. And he says, you're going to anoint Mashiach, the one that I tell you about. And Jesse brought all of his sons, and then no. God said, no, but he's the biggest, he's the handsome, he's the oldest, he's the strongest. No, that's not who I want. that really handsome young boy over there. That's the one I want. Do you know where he found him? Where do the prophecies say that the Mashiach is going to come from?
From among the sheep.
From Bethlehem, right?
Oh, Bethlehem, that's the place.
Guess where where he came from when he was first anointed as a young man from by Samuel at Yahweh's discretion. Guess where was he and where did he come from?
He's right there, same place.
In Bethlehem.
Bethlehem. What did he come riding on?
A donkey.
A donkey. When Yahweh said, I want you to anoint him, my Mashiach in this way. You know if there was any mention of the Spirit at that time? Absolutely. Yahweh said at that very moment, my spirit came upon him and never left him. At the moment he was anointed, Yahweh said, my spirit came upon him and never left him. And he came from from Bethlehem riding a donkey. All those things that Christians apply to their Lord Jesus.
I think Yahweh has backed you into a corner. There's only one answer.
He has,
hasn't he? I don't think it could be much more clear.
No.
Just to be clear, he said.
Yeah, just to be clear. In case you miss it. And he will guide, leading those who are nursing, lifting them up in his lap. This this mother's suckling their youngest sheep. You know what I think is going to happen? I hope it happens. I think there's going to be a lot of women in particular, and we have a lot in the covenant family now, who are going to step up big time, who are going to be the most devoted to learning and translating and to putting it all together, even if they don't translate, but bringing it all together and conveying it to the boys out there.
Mm-hmm.
I just think there's going to be a lot of that. And I think there's going to be a lot of women who are going to learn from and embrace Dode. And when I look at, every week, multiple times a week, I get a letter from somebody that we didn't. Those even we communicate online, we had no idea it was part of Yah's family, and they're announcing how long they've been part of the family and how they came to know Yah through these books and these programs, and it's really gratifying. But when I look at some of the women who are in the covenant that have sons and daughters, sons-in-laws, daughters-in-laws, neighbors and children, and husbands, wives, but particularly the women whose life has been so profoundly improved by getting to know Yah that those that are closest to them have embraced the covenant. I think there's a lot of merit here in this idea that Dode is guiding these women who are going to reach out and suckle a lot of young babes in the covenant, feed them, nurture them. A lot of that going on. I know that you guys spent some time translating this again. Is there any part of Zeroah? I mean, obviously, when I defined it here, and I didn't emphasize the root seed enough, but let me read that full definition, and feel free to challenge it. That he will gather the lambs. So we know that the Zeroah has to be someone who has, because he's going to the way that it's being described, he's got to have strong, capable arms. He has to be a protective shepherd. And the way that he is living with the sheep, and Yahweh's use of Zeroah as the sacrificial lamb, he's got to be a productive ram. So his strong and capable arms, with him being a protective shepherd and a productive ram, with all of the resolve and ability he can muster, as an important and impactful individual of action, who as a ram among the sheep is a leader and fighter, engaged within the flock, as a shepherd, protecting his sheep, who is fruitful in his ways, Zerah, accomplishing the mission, Zerah, especially when sowing the seeds of truth, Zerah, and advancing the purpose of the arm of God in the sacrificial lamb. Other than adding more from the root Zerah, would you guys find any part of that should come out, or what more would you add to it?
No, I've actually got pretty much that. You've got the words help. I mean, the letters help a little bit with Zerah. You've got the basic. The root is a vein and a root. So you've got the directional line and that of the harvest. It also has harvest because you're really doing a plow in a straight line connecting to a marker, which is we interpret as being, at least I do interpret to be the arcs along the way. I mean the signpost along the way.
Yeah. And that plow does a lot of things. First of all, it separates, right?
It's a big letter.
It's a line. It's a line in the dirt, so there's a separation aspect of it. There's breaking up the hard soil, so it's receptive, right?
Mm-hmm.
The plow turns over the weeds so that the roots are exposed and they die, right? It creates a trench where you can plant seeds for them to be productive and grow.
Correct.
And it's a metal implement. It's a sharp metal implement that is used as part of the idea of planting and harvesting, nurturing food, as opposed to man making weapons of war.
Nourishment, yeah, it is. Yeah, after all, it is the plow that they cut everything into. It's also the number 7, which is perfection.
Yeah, it is.
That's true too.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yep. So there's a lot to that letter. We don't see it a lot, but there's a lot to that letter. And the observant person, the Rosh, the observant person is going to see that, right? Notice it.
Right. And he's looking at in the Roshes, the observant person is looking at a new view, a new perspective with the Ayin. So that's about all I got.
Yeah, and the thing that separates Zerah from Zeroah is the addition of a Wah, a letter in Yahweh's name that helps establish, to add to increase, to secure.
Yep.
So Yahweh has shared his understanding of Zeroah, surrounding it with words that we would readily understand as a ra'ah eder, a shepherd tending God's flock. Dod was the shepherd's shepherd. And this is what made Dod God's Zeroah, a capable arm, a productive ram, protecting the flock. Dod was not only a ra'ah shepherd, who was afforded the privilege of ra'ah, tending to Yahweh's chosen sheep, leading and feeding them, guiding them, and protecting them. He did so as a Zeroah, as a ram within the flock, who with his strong arm and capable arms was willing to make whatever sacrifice was required for the benefit of the sheep. Dod Zeroah manifests the resolve and overall ability and of an important and impactful individual of action as a ram among his sheep. He was a leader and a fighter, steadfastly and effectively engaged with the flock as a shepherd protecting his sheep while enriching their lives. He was Zeroah, fruitful in his ways, accomplishing the mission, especially through his mizmor and his mashal. He sowed the seeds of truth while advancing the purpose of the arm of God and his sacrificial lamb. Pretty hard to erase Dod from Zeroah, isn't it? Particularly in the context Yaz just painted. I mean, he's told us who he's coming back with, and then he uses Zeroah to define him. You'd be a fool not to see Dod fulfilling that. Now, based upon this is an amazing term, and I think that this term Zeroah is about about to lead us to one of the most revealing and affirming statements, at least I have ever encountered. It is probably, of everything that I have done over these last 18 years or 19 years, by utter surprise, just by doing the job, following the words to where the words lead, not being comfortable with the lexicon definitions and being willing to see how Yahweh defines the terms and making sure you come up with a definition that's consistent. It took us to a place that I had never envisioned. Didn't want, didn't ask for, but it's the single most impactful thing I can recall yet encountering in terms of God lifting up, supporting, encouraging, calling attention to what we're doing. It's the most amazing affirmation I've ever read. So based on its use in the Torah, Shemoth, Exodus 6:6, 15:16, Bamidbar, Numbers 6:19, Devarim, Deuteronomy 4:34 and 16:12, even Mizmor, Psalm 77:15, and Yashayah, Isaiah 33:2. Zoroah is used to symbolically present the sacrificial lamb's ability to shoulder our burdens in association with Pesach. But that's not always the case. So if you were to render Zoroah as the sacrificial lamb based upon each of those places where it's used, you'd be right. But you wouldn't be complete. Zoroah is based on Zerah. That's the thing that you pointed out to us. To sow seeds, and thus denotes the ideas of being productive and fruitful, in sowing seeds of truth, and of conceiving offspring. No man exhibited these attributes more than Doeg. Most Hebrew lexicons define Zoroah as arm. That's it, right? Mm-hmm. You looked it up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Arm.
It always pops up first.
But I think that might have been because somebody with the King James. By the way, if the book is named after some nitwit king, why in the world would you trust it? Anyway, the King James used it as arm, so I guess they want it to be arm, but that usage is quite rare. Occurring, maybe a dozen of the, and I had my numbers wrong, and I apologize. I had thought it was about 5%. No, it's closer to 15%. So about 15% of the time, it's a dozen of some 90 references. Okay, so some 15% of the time, you can render Zoroah correctly as arm. So capable arm, 15% of the time, it's capable arm. So we have to add now capable arm, based upon the way it's used in the text, to sacrificial lamb. So we have now two working definitions. Now, to be fair, the arm and shoulder, like the hand in Hebrew, are almost always presented symbolically. And the arm, the hand, and the shoulder convey an individual's influence and capability, their power and strength, their ability to be productive, to get things done, and to prevail. The hand of God. Do you think that God's got his flappy thing down there with the digits at the end of it?
No.
Or that Yahweh uses
I don't think he's got an arm. I don't know what it would look like. I haven't met one yet, so
right.
So I don't.
When he says the arm of God, he is speaking of how Yahweh goes about getting things done. And fortunately for us, he likes working with us. Likes working with people. And so you've got to keep that in mind. That and you look up Yod, for example, hand. After you see hand, what you're going to see is ability, influence, capability, power, strength.
How would it work?
That's how these words are used. They're symbolic words. When you read Panah and its face, well, it's also appearance and presence. And so It's a symbolic term, similar to the symbolic uses found here in Yahowah 40, while also being deployed during prophetic references to the last day. We find Zeroah used in Mizmor, Psalm 98:1, Yahowah, Isaiah 51:9, 52:10, 63:5, Yakizel, Ezekiel 20:33, last days, all addressing Yahweh's ability to vanquish his enemy upon his return. Fact is, God's a fighter. He's not a pacifist, as was Dowd. Recognizing this, Zeroah is deployed 3 times to denote a king leading a large army. As a result, a broken Zeroah in that context is symbolic of a defeated military force. Not surprisingly, the word is used in this context on 8 occasions. Driving right to the heart of Zeroah's metaphorical usage in this context, it is twice deployed identically to how we see it here in Yahowah 40. In both, Zeroah describes the role of a particularly important individual in God's sight, a ram among the sheep, an empowered and capable shepherd, a productive fighter who consistently prevails when defending his flock from those who would harm them, a leader among his people, with the strength, resolve, and character to make the necessary sacrifices for his flock to live free and fruitful lives by sowing the seeds of truth as the arm of God, thereby guiding the sheep to the sacrificial lamb. In Yahowah, Isaiah 63:12, Moshe was presented as the Zeroah for his contribution to leading Yahshep, the children of Israel, out of captivity in Mitzrayim, and thereafter serving as their shepherd by walking with Yahweh or working with Yahweh to compose the Torah. So if Yahowah says that Moshe was a Zeroah, then we know we've got 2 of them. And if Zeroah is used in the context of the sacrificial lamb of Pesach, we know we have 3 of them. Now, I think that the term fits Dowd the best, but we can't exclude Moshe and Yahusha from that term. Now, in that particular prophecy, we can exclude the other 2 because Yahweh has made it really clear that that Shazak, that the man he's come back with, is Dowd. But all 3. Therefore, since this reference in Yahowah 40 clearly depicts Dowd as Yahweh's Zeroah upon his return, we find the 3 most important and productive individuals Yahweh deployed being described as Zeroah. There are 3 of them, count them: Moshe, Dowd, and Yahusha. They are rams among the sheep. In recognition of this concluding thought, there are 2 other times the Zeroah is used that I thought would be wise to consider, both of which may profoundly change the way you process the words that I'm sharing with you this evening. Words that may profoundly change how you read these 19 books. The first is in Dabri Ha-Yomim, 2 Chronicles. That's words for our time, words for the day, 6:32. And the last is found in Yahowah, Isaiah 51. Now, before we dive into the latter, the Dabri Ha-Yomim, 2 Chronicles 6:32, be aware that 2 of Yahweh's 3 Zeroah, Dowd and Yahusha, share many things in common, including God referring to both as his son. They're both branches. One was Mashiach by Yah, the other was predicted to be the Mashiach by Daniel. One was king of Israel, and the other was called as much by Rome's governor. They were both resolutely Torah observant. Therefore, both Dod and Yosha serve alongside Moshe as Yahweh Zeroah, the strong arm of God, as the empowered ram who shepherds the flock as the sacrificial lamb. And in that order. From that perspective, the introduction to what is among the most acclaimed prophecies ever uttered speaks of someone whom Yahweh says has made this revelation known. It acknowledges the existence of an individual who will or has uniquely ascertained and then clearly conveyed the identity of these Zeroah, especially relevant. The sole reason that this individual is mentioned at this moment is that by seeking to establish and verify the point of the prophetic message that Yahweh was conveying through Yahshua, this individual's analysis and insights are somehow relevant to the message that Yahweh was actually conveying through Yahshua. Observations for our time. Did it not seek to discover what Yahweh actually said through this prophet by going through Yahshua chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18?
Well, we've been doing it for years now.
Yeah. Who has come to establish, verify, and prove the point of our message from far away? And who has the strong arm, the protective ram, and the sacrificial lamb, the Zeroah, of Yahweh being revealed and made known? Yahshua 53:1. Who has come to establish, verify, and prove, Imam, has reliably, confidently, and dependently demonstrated is true the point of our message from far away, reporting the information and news from Yahweh through Yahshua while in a different geographical area, and then announcing it to others. And to who has the strong arm and protective ram, the sacrificial lamb, the Zeroah of Yahweh, been revealed and made known, been openly exposed through evidence and reason, Gala. In this context, every positive attribute we have considered fits Yahweh's three Zeroah. Now, we're at the end of our broadcast period, but as so many have learned, if you get in early and you call in on the switchboard number, you will be able to continue to listen, and so long as our voices hold out, we can give it this some more time and at least begin our review of Words for Our Day, Solomon's speech. And also in recognition that about 95% of those who benefit from these programs listen to the archives. Let's continue on a little longer.
Sure. Sounds good.
So, in this context, we find every positive attribute of the three Zeroah, Moshe, Dod, and Yosha. They were all uniquely important, serving as the hand of God. Each was empowered, capable, and protective as a leader on God's behalf. Productive rams among the sheep who consistently prevailed when fighting to defend God's flock. They were effective. They were impactful. Men of action with the strength, resolve, and character and overall ability to accomplish the mission. All three recognized and fulfilled their role as the strong arm of God, as productive rams among the sheep, as shepherds guiding and protecting the flock. They were fruitful, especially when sowing the seeds of truth, which advance the purpose of the arm of God, of the shepherd, and of the sacrificial lamb. Now, I'm not going to attempt to answer the question that was posed by Yahweh. And yet the truth established and the insights revealed by this anonymous individual were worth noting by God. As he commenced what is arguably the clearest presentation found anywhere in the prophets of the primary role of the Zeroah. And Yeshayah 53. In fact, Yeshayah 53 is so poignant that when rabbis do their annual, they go through every chapter systematically throughout a year that's in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, they always skip Yeshayah 53 because Yeshayah 53 means that they just flat out bungled it. And they just skip it. That's how powerful it is. They know it. So I would certainly encourage readers to search, to find, to study any and every resource which has correctly identified the Zeroah with Moshe, with Dod, and with Yosha, while at the same time establishing, verifying, and providing the point of Yahweh's message as it was revealed through Yeshayah. And surprisingly, for most, the primary theme of Yeshayah is goddamn religion. That's the primary theme. Now here then is for your consideration, and we're going to go over this again next week, is the first time Zeroah was used to identify a unique individual. The words we're about to read were spoken by Solomon. Shalomo is Solomon. It means reconciliation. He's Dod's son. Now, I'm going to be fair here. I'm going to attempt to be fair. I've never been a fan of Solomon. That he was the wisest man who ever lived. And, of course, people cite the idea of two women arguing over a baby, and he said, well, just cut the baby in half and split it between the two of them so that the one that really was the mother would say, no, don't do that. I'm not a Solomon fan. I realized that Yahweh specifically said of Dod's offspring is going to be Solomon. And I know that Yahweh, because we translated it, we made a big deal out of it, that when Yahweh asked Shalomo, what does he want from me? And Shalomo, like the big blue genie, talking to the big blue genie, didn't say, I want to be the world's greatest lover. He didn't say that. He didn't say, I want to live forever. He didn't say that. He said, I want to be the most powerful guy in the world. Didn't say that. I want to be the smartest dude in the history of the world. Didn't even say that, but close. He said, I want wisdom. I want to be able to do this job well. And Yahweh said, because what you asked for was understanding, I'm going to give you everything, even the things you didn't ask for. And clearly, Solomon started off right. What he said, what he did, manifest the reality that Yahweh did give him understanding. It was exceptional. The difference between Dod and his son Solomon is that Dod, of course, rose from very humble beginnings, which he never forgot. He was primarily a shepherd. And Dod, because of the role that Yahweh had chosen for him, had virtually everybody in the world against him all the time. And he really developed character as a result of it. And Dod spent 3/4 of his life, maybe more, with Yahweh. From the very early age, Yahweh's spirit was on him, and this man continued to write Mizmor, Psalms, and Mashal, Proverbs, throughout much of his life. At the very end, he made a horrendous mistake. And the horrendous mistake wasn't adding a seventh wife to the women that he was married to, or adding another concubine to the 10 that were in his home. His horrible mistake is that he saw a woman that he wanted who was another man's wife, and that man was a covenant member. And he sent that man off on a mission that was likely to get him killed, and it did. And then he took his wife. And Yahweh said, Dod, I understand, we've been through a lot. You're still my son. You're still right. I still love you. But we're going to have a timeout because you ought not have done that. But that was this is a guy that started young and had done this all of his life. I began this when 18 years ago. I had lived most of my life, my most productive years, as someone who was doing the wrong thing. In terms of, I wasn't focused. I was religious for much of my life. I was political for much of my life. I was focused on economics for much of my life. You guys, at JB, you started fairly young, but Kirk and I, we started late. We were kind of like Moshe. We're late bloomers. Dode started early. He had his whole life. And so Solomon, he cratered under the responsibility much earlier than Dode did. And it's a big job. It's a responsible job. I would never have wanted Moshe's job. I would never have wanted Dode's job or Solomon's job. And he cratered early. And Yahweh didn't admonish him for having too many wives or too many concubines and the like, accumulating too much wealth, because Yahweh made it all available to him. He started marrying foreign women, and the foreign women wanted him to promote their gods, and he did. And so later in his life, I think that Solomon was a lost soul. And I think that the book of Ecclesiastes is not inspired, and it's a man who had all the opportunity in the world and squandered it. I think it's what it is. And I think the Song of Solomon is Shalomo writing about the one thing he understood, the love of a woman. But in the early years of his life, he was particularly adept at knowing what Yahweh had promised to Dode, his father, and what Yahweh had said to him. And so this is about his Sermon on the Mount, and this is not any ordinary mountain. This is no ordinary proclamation. It could well be, with the exception of the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, the single most important event that ever took place on this mountain. I think it's certainly up there with Abraham and with Yishak meeting Yahweh on Mount Moriah to affirm the covenant. It's certainly up there with Dode building his home there. This is the commemoration of the temple, Yahweh's home. Dode left all of, he had bought the site, he had accumulated the material, but Yahweh said, I'm not going to let you build my home because you're a man of war. I'm not going to have blood on my home. And he didn't mind Dode being a man of war. He just said that, but my home isn't going to be built by a man of war, so your son, Shalomo, is going to do it. And he had done it. He did it exactly the way Yahweh asked him to do. And there it was, the most magnificent building on earth, gleaming in that beautiful white limestone. The moment it was finished. And now he has all Yisrael in front of him. He's standing such that he's looking at Yisrael, the most magnificent building, the home of Yahweh on earth, the home of the Ark of the Covenant, the home of the original autograph of the Torah is behind him. And he's giving the commemorative speech at that very moment. That's the Sermon on the Mount, folks. So, here then is the first time Zerah was used to identify a unique individual. The words here are spoken by Solomon, reconciliation, Dod's son, upon the completion and dedication of Yahweh's family home. At the seminal moment in the life of a united Yisrael, standing atop Moriah, with the recently completed temple gleaming in the background, the man noted for his wisdom, Shalomo, reconciliation, Solomon, delivered the original Sermon on the Mount. He was dedicating the building that Yahweh had designed to showcase the Ark of the Covenant, the tablets of stone, and the original autograph of the Torah Moshe had scribed. With Yaakov's descendants gathered before him, and speaking of the promises Yahweh had made to his father, Dod, while desirous of guiding his people's footsteps, Solomon used an especially descriptive term, one that is the last term that I would ever have suspected we would see in someone's voice other than to say, pay no attention to that person, that's a foreigner. Don't follow the ways of the foreigner. Stay away from them. Don't adopt their customs. But not this time. The term is Nakri. Nakri is a discerning foreigner from a distant place, from a distant time, speaking a different language, who as a result of being observant would come to understand. To tell the children of Yisrael how they should respond to the words that this individual would write on their behalf. After describing the importance of the Ark of the Covenant, which had been placed in the center of God's home, Solomon reiterated many of the wonderful things which would benefit Yisrael if his people continued to observe the Torah. But knowing they wouldn't, he said the following. In addition, regarding someone else, the observant and discerning foreigner from a different ethnicity and geographic location, who will come to understand Nakri. Someone from a different place and culture, speaking a different language, who, having paid attention, will come to comprehend from Nakar. Someone who, by being attentive and astute, will come to become acquainted with, recognize, and acknowledge something which deserves our highest regard and respect. Not the individual, but what they've come to realize and know. Who to show the way to the benefits of the relationship. After Nakri, the word that's brought us all to this place, Asher. Who to reveal the correct and restrictive path to walk to get the most out of life, reemphasized again, is not of your people. Not of this Yisrael. He will come, he will arrive into the scene from a distant country in a distant time. Min Eretz Rakok. Out of a land a great distance from Yisrael, and following a long interval of time, for the express purpose of being a witness and providing answers. Lama'an, for the sake of responding and replying, providing testimony as a witness with the express intent and purpose of revealing your, speaking of Yahweh's, surprisingly important, tremendously empowering, growth-promoting, magnifying, astonishingly great name. Personal and proper designation. The influence of your hand, your ability to accomplish the mission, and your Yod, the first letter in your name, along with the powerful and passionate ruler who is prepared to lead. Remember Shazak? Yahweh is coming back with the Shazak. There it is. And the protective ram who shepherds the flock. The Zeroah, whom you have extended, speaking of Yahweh, whom you have extended. When he arrives on the scene and chooses to pursue this, then he will help interested parties reconcile their relationship by providing those who exercise good judgment with the information and justifications needed to make a correct and reasonable decision regarding this familial relationship. When you hear it out of the heavens, coming out of the atmosphere, within the location where you live, then engage and act accordingly, doing everything which to show the way, the Nakri, the observant individual from a different ethnicity and geographic location who understands. Kara has invited you to read for the express purpose of being a witness who provides answers such that all people of the earth will have a genuine and ongoing opportunity to become familiar with Yada, to know, acknowledge, accept, and understand your name, coming to respect and revere you simultaneously along with your people, Yisrael, and also so that they may know that truthfully, assuredly, your family and this house, which to reveal the correct path to walk, to give meaning to life, that I have built for the family, I being Solomon, are designated and called by your name. Dabarim ha-yomim, words for the days, 2 Chronicles, concluding in 6:33. That most certainly wasn't what I expected. But it's profound.
But I translated this this week deeply.
Yes, you did.
No way.
And what did you find?
Well, I mean, it's exactly that. But the things that were interesting after I got through it, word and phrase and grammar and all everything I do and the letters. You have to sit there and pause and you ask yourself, if you know a stranger to Israel who doesn't have the same DNA, not related in that regard, speaks a foreign language, comes from a country far away, and not only tells the world what Yah's name is, which is the one thing that I jumped on immediately. That was my hot button, like yours was Asher. Mm-hmm. But what it means and why it's significant, we just lay it out. A lot of people, you can look up Yahweh and maybe figure out how to pronounce it a little better, but we understood it. We understood the hand reaching down, who they were, etc., etc., etc. How God wrote it on the tablets, and the penalty for negating it. And then you ask yourself, well, who could that be? And then you go a little bit further, and you can say, I got a little bit further, and I made a little side note off to all my other big notes. So who do we know that deciphered the Codex and found the return of Dode with Yahweh? This is a fulfilled prophecy as you're doing it tonight.
Yes.
have been doing
it.
It is. I mean, it's not. This is. That's. I find it amazing. It's tingly.
Yeah, it makes me tingly. Not in one way.
I mean, I've been doing
and shaking in my boots in another. God's not kidding around here, folks.
No.
I know there's a lot of people out there because we come across so confident in what we have come to know about Yahweh.
Yeah.
And we're so intolerant of the conspiratorial types and the political types and the religious types that write really awful things, particularly about me. And, I'm sure I have personality aspects that that people just don't like.
Well, they're jealous.
But, folks, you need to read this.
Yeah.
You need to read this. And, Kirk, I don't think this is this is not a honor. It's not a privilege. It's not any of that. But it's God recognizing that for the last 2,500 years, His own people have deserted Him.
Mm-hmm.
And yet He has not deserted them and still wants to call them home. But He could not find a single Yahudim that would do this, that would take His word seriously, that would study His name and come to reveal it for the world to know and for His people to know, who would study and figure out who it is that's the Chazak that's coming back with Him, that would figure out who the Zeroah are, that would pull this whole picture together, speaking the lingua franca not only of the world, but of almost all Jews the world over. More Jews speak English than any other language. And Yahweh just doesn't say this is going to happen. He says you better act upon what He tells you to read.
He teaches you, what you're taught to is.
Right. It doesn't say pay Him any allegiance. It doesn't say thank Him. It doesn't say anything other than you darn well better pay attention to and act upon what He tells you to read. What He's telling you to read is the translations of Yahweh's testimony. It's really underscores just how important what we're doing and when we're doing it is to Yahweh. He made a promise to Abraham. He's going to reconcile his relationship with his people. And for that to occur, Yahweh has to get his people's attention in such a way that his people can read what he had to say in a way that presents his words as he actually intended them. Someone who's going to say, don't look at the dead God on a stick. Look to Daud. Look to what the King of Yisrael, the Mashiach, the Son of God, had to say. Apply it to your life. And by the way, you don't have much time because this world is getting progressively more anti-Semitic, and you need to listen now. Now, Kirk, this didn't need to be exclusive. 1,000 people, 1 million people could have done what we have done. And that would have been wonderful, but they didn't.
It takes some want to.
It takes a lot of want to. Yeah, how many hours this week did you spend looking at the words, the letters, the grammar?
A lot. Late at night. I was stuck on one word, and I had to go through and find old Jacinius. Yep. And I must have spent an hour and a half on one word and read, 7 or 8 very small print pages, just until I couldn't go to bed till I did it, and that was really early this morning. So I'm going, oh God, this is that was my choice. I mean, this is all volition.
Yeah, of course. No, it's not a sacrifice.
It's not a paycheck involved.
No, it's not a sacrifice. It's a reward. It's an honor. It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I couldn't live it alone either.
So
I'll wake up now at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'll just come downstairs and sit here and translate and write and share because, well, we're doing something that the Creator of the universe wants done.
Yeah, that's the kicker, man. That is the real kicker. He likes what y'all are doing.
This is what He wants done, and it's not that we're doing a spectacular job of it, but at least we're doing the job.
We're trying.
We're trying. Yeah. We're going where the words lead. We're trying to do a complete and accurate, comprehensive analysis of what God said and explain what that means, so that His children can find their way home. And anybody else could have done it. They just didn't. It's for darn sure we didn't have credentials. You're an artist. I was a business guy. JB, you're a technologist.
Computer guy,
yeah. We didn't have any credentials that would have appealed to anyone, but we did it, and we're doing it, and we love it.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't ask for this. We didn't ask. There was no point at any time we said, "Boy, God, it would sure be nice if you'd throw us a bone. A little acknowledgement would be good. We spent a lot of time here." I don't recall ever saying that. Did you ever say that? I never even thought it.
No, I just wanted to know.
Just wanted to know. I loved knowing. But then you read something like this, and you go, "Oh my!"
He is listening.
Thank you for the acknowledgement, but that changes everything in the sense of this is. As much as I would, and up to this point, I have always taken the approach of do it for as long as it's fun. When it's not fun, go do something else. It's not like you're going to leave it forever, but just this should never be work. It should never be a burden. It should be something that is fun, and do it while it's fun. But all of a sudden now you're saying, "Oh my, there's not a lot of time left." There's a lot of Israelites and Yehudim out there. A lot of people in the world. A friend of mine was sharing with me an update on the status of anti-Semitism in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And as they were doing this research, it just made them sick. Just how every place in the world is getting worse and worse and worse. American universities are now hotbeds for anti-Semitism. Among the worst anti-Semitic attacks in the world are there. And of course, almost every government in the world is anti-Semitic. Every religion in the world is anti-Semitic. Truth be known, Rabbinic Judaism is stunningly anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Because anti-Sem is based on Shem, which means against the name. Yeah, against the name. And they are against the name. And well, this individual was just horrified and saddened by how rapidly and how broadly anti-Semitism is growing around the world. I wasn't. Now, why do you think that is? Well, this individual was Jewish, so I understand that. And you might say, well, because you're a goyim and they're Jewish, that's why it didn't bother you. In fact, I didn't smile, but I took it as good news, not bad news. Why do you think that would be?
Because that means he's coming closer to me.
Yeah, because it's an affirmation
that everything
that the time is such that God is calling His people out of the three Babylons and home, because that's the only place that He can effectively watch out and protect them. He's calling His people home because anti-Semitism is going to get so bad that there's no other option. And without this, His people aren't ever going to figure it out.
Yeah.
If it weren't for this growth of anti-Semitism and this need to figure out Why is it that the whole world hates me? Who can I turn to that doesn't hate me? And they find out that the one reliable individual they can turn to is Yahweh. And the person that can tell them the most about Yahweh is Dod, the king of Yisrael, the actual Mashiach, the Son of God, the branch.
Most of them think in English, though. So
right,
that makes this so vital.
Right, so that the very rise of anti-Semitism around the world is the good news, because it's going to, for the first time, cause the children of Israel to leave Babylon and come back home. And we're just helping to convey what was posted on those signs which have been posted along the way. How much prophecy have we written where we're delivering new prophecy?
Not a word.
Not a word. We're not prophets. We're simply translating and presenting the words of Yah's prophets, and then helping those who consider them understand them and their implications. Everything that we're saying, everything that we've come to know, has been available to everyone for a very long time.
Just gotta look.
Now, we do have an advantage in this particular time, and I think that advantage, it's essential that we recognize the benefits we have of time. It's like, I think Thomas Jefferson was one smart dude. He recognized that Paul was a complete and utter fraud. That's an amazing thing with the tools that he had available to him. What do you think Thomas Jefferson could have done with the tools that we have available to us?
Wrong way.
He'd have figured it out.
Awesome.
Yeah, he'd have figured it out. Wouldn't it have been awesome? We have those tools. We can do it. And we have to cut through a sea of absolute rubbish, because Christianity is the plague of death, and it is astonishingly popular. People are patriots. They're political. Got to cut through all of that. People are militaristic. They love their militaries. Got to cut through all of that. People think that if you're criticizing Judaism or Islam that you're being racist, and it's not the case at all. And we got to cut through all the myth and misconceptions of political correctness. And there's no one to partner with other than Yahweh himself and the other members in the covenant family. But I think we'll go over this again and then move on next week, because particularly Yisrael, Yahudam Jews, you need to hear this. Now, I understand that Yahweh said that it's going to be made for the entire world to hear this at the same time. Mm-hmm. But simultaneous with that, the message is being brought forth for Yisrael.
One quick note to you and JB.
I
will not be here. I will not be able to participate Friday, so don't get my job away.
Okay, won't do that.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you,
right.
JB.
Well, thank you, JB. Thank you, Kirk. That was a pleasure.
Yeah, shalom, shalom, y'all.
Always a good time.
Shalom, shalom.
Yes, indeed.
Shalom.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Good night.